Gojo has long been the strongest in Jujutsu Kaisen and held as a pinnacle of strength. The moment he was introduced, he called himself the strongest. But is he really? Gojo had a fight with the strongest in history, Ramen Sukuna. A fight that led to his death, which many fans were upset about for the way it was done, especially because of how well Gojo performed in the fight. He's known as the strongest Jujutsu sorcerer with the rank of special grade, stronger than Yuta Kotsu with his massive pool of curse energy, and even Kenjaku, who had 1,000 years to learn how to become as strong as possible. His rank alone is the highest in the entire series, and is only given to those who can wipe out a country by themselves. He's a man born with the first combination of Limitless and Six Eyes in 400 years, and so much of a prodigy that he can do anything, and was immediately chosen as the next Gojo clan head. With all that said, is Gojo still the strongest? When Gojo was born, it was into an era where curse users roamed freely because of the sorcerers having their hands full. Gojo being born with the Six Eyes, a jujutsu that gives him many benefits we'll get into later, was enough to earn him a bounty of over 100,000 in his youth. When assassins were sent after Gojo, they were frozen in their tracks because of how strong he was. Not only had him existing forced curses to increase their strength, but he changed the balance of the entire world with his presence alone. This was enough to send curse users like Ogami and Jiro into hiding for over a decade. The same Jiro who could compete with grade 1 sorcerers like Yuji and Megumi at the same time in Shibuya, who claimed he would never have set foot into the battle had Gojo still been around. By the time Gojo is a second-year student at Jujutsu High, he's being sent on missions to rescue grade 1 and grade 2 sorcerers with Suguru. This isn't spoken about until later, but even at this age, Gojo is already special grade, making him the strongest even in his youth. Gojo is so confident in his strength that even when he gets a mission that could affect the entire world, he has no stress over it, since he and Suguru are the strongest sorcerers alive. This is later shown to be valid, since the terrorists they were up against were no match for either of them. But Gojo's confidence will be called into question later on. Even within these terrorist groups, their strongest soldiers instantly recognize Gojo, saying he's famous for his strength at a young age. When the bounty hunters come after Riko, who Gojo is protecting, 2 of his target's clones are taken out instantly. This is Gojo's technique Blue in action, that uses magnetic properties to smash his opponents together at will. The other clones attack Gojo and can't even get near him. This is thanks to Gojo's Limitless that infinitely slows down anyone that tries to attack him, making sure they never reach his body. During their fight, Gojo can recognize his opponent's technique, even though he was never told what it was. This is because of his Six Eyes that let him see cursed energy on a different level. When he's younger, Gojo still struggles with different uses of his curse technique. For example, using blue at a high level is difficult for him, and using reverse techniques is out of his grasp until later. After bringing Riko to Okinawa, Suguru becomes concerned for Gojo. By the next morning, his technique and his body will have been active for 2 days with no sleep. Gojo does brush this off, but it comes back to bite him later, showing he can get fatigued in his younger years. When the group makes it to Jujutsu High, Gojo is stabbed from behind by Toji. Not only is Toji a man with no cursed energy, he also used a regular weapon instead of a cursed tool, so Gojo had no way to detect him. He does survive even though his technique didn't make it in time, since he reinforced his body so that Toji wouldn't kill him with his attack. This confirms that Gojo in his younger years needs to manually activate Limitless, and that reinforcing his body with his cursed energy to boost his defenses is a valid option for him. After he sends Suguru and Riko away, Gojo launches his technique Blue at Toji, who's so fast that Gojo didn't even register that he dodged until after it happened. This is the only time in the entire series that anyone has ever dodged Blue, as even Sukuna himself has Blue used against him when Gojo is older. It's in this moment that Gojo realizes Toji has 0 curse energy, so he can't read his moves before they happen. This is explained by another character, Todo, who says that sorcerers track what their opponent's going to do by looking at their cursed energy. Toji responds by moving around the area so fast that when Gojo tracks the cursed spirit on Toji's body, he's blown away by Toji's speed. While Gojo is fatigued as mentioned earlier, this is significant since Toji is compared to characters like Three-Finger Sukuna and Maki Zenin later on. Gojo uses his max output Azure Glow to wipe out everything in the area around them and get rid of any surprise attacks from Toji. Some confuse this with a maximum technique, and I've been guilty of this in the past. But this is Gojo pouring more cursed energy into his blue technique to boost its gravity and pull in everything around it. He's then caught off guard and stabbed in the throat with Toji's inverted Spear of Heaven. A curse tool that shuts off curse techniques on contact removes his infinity defense completely. Toji then stabs Gojo several times with the inverted Spear of Heaven and finishes the fight by using a different weapon to stab him in the forehead. This is a massive mistake by Toji, because the weapon he used to stab Gojo in the brain is the entire reason he survives in the first place. While this was a one-sided win for Toji, it's worth noting that wearing Gojo down and exhausting him was all a part of his plan from the beginning, since fighting Gojo head-on was something he wasn't sure that he could do and win. On the verge of death, Gojo gave up fighting back and put everything he had into staying alive. This let him figure out how to use a reverse curse technique that can heal all physical injuries as long as his brain isn't destroyed. Now that Gojo is awakened and healed, he's not only stronger, but not fatigued like he was earlier. This is so much of a boost that the same Toji who could blitz him earlier can't even touch him. With his new boost, Gojo blasts Toji with his reverse technique, Red Glow, that he couldn't use early on. Not only does this hit Toji, it's enough to make him question if Gojo broke the bones in his body from one attack. Even with this, Toji is sure that he can deal with all of Gojo's abilities. The inverted Spear of Heaven can still deal with Infinity in red, and he still thinks his speed is more than enough for blue. Toji is thrown off when one look from Gojo is enough to make him uneasy. The same Toji who defeated 2 special grade sorcerers in one day and laughed about it is now questioning himself from one look from Satoru Gojo. Gojo reflects on the death of Riko at Toji's hands and says he doesn't feel anger or vengeance and that he alone is the honored one. This parallels him to the King of Curses, Ryuman Sukuna, the strongest in history, which will come up later. Toji fires the inverted Spear of Heaven at Gojo, which misses, and Gojo responds with a new technique, Hollow Purple. In a Shonen Jump special, where the author brought in 2 separate people to help him explain Hollow Purple, imaginary mass was used the same way it was in the manga, along with the Minkowski metric, in which tachyons, a part of Minkowski's space-time, that are used to describe imaginary masses, reach speed beyond light. There are other interpretations of purple that simply have it as a strong virtual mass, like the one Yuki Tsukumo punches with. Whichever you prefer is up to you. The attack is enough to kill Toji in one hit, leaving a massive hole in his body that he never recovered from. The same man who could murder the entire Zenin clan, including a much younger Naobito on a whim, and defeat Curse Naoya, as spoken about and shown by Maki Zenin. After his fight with Toji, Gojo trains for an entire year and becomes the strongest there is. He can now use Limitless automatically around the clock, and heal himself on demand in case anyone can damage him anyway. It's during this time that Gojo is implied to have either sealed or destroyed the inverted Spear of Heaven, meaning Toji's weapon that almost killed him in the first place can't be used by anyone else to bypass his Limitless, since Gojo won't let something that can weaken him exist. After his growth, Suguru, Gojo's best friend, becomes an antagonist and wants to wipe out every normal human on the planet. Gojo thinks this is impossible, but Suguru says Gojo himself can do this if he wanted to. This is thanks to his techniques like red, blue, and purple, but also the fact that he can heal himself around the clock and not run out of curse energy thanks to his 6 eyes. After their conversation, Suguru tells Gojo to kill him if he wants to. It's during this time that Gojo gets ready to hollow purple an entire crowd of people, but stops himself at the last second. A decade later, Gojo is now a teacher at Jujutsu High and takes on a new student, Yuta Kotsu. The higher-ups of the Jujutsu world want to execute Yuta, but don't even attempt to, purely because Gojo will defend him, on top of Rika being strong as well, showing that no one in the world compares to Gojo at that point in the series. Yuta is later shown to have the same rank as Gojo of special grade, although Yuta is still not at the peak of his strength, and even when he does get stronger later on, he's not on Gojo's level. When Suguru comes back to Tokyo, it's to wage war on all of Japan, and Gojo fights Miguel, one of Suguru's strongest soldiers. Miguel is a man who uses a weapon called the Black Rope that disturbs Gojo's curse technique, yet he shows no issue in dealing with him, unlike his first run-in with the inverted Spear of Heaven. In their fight, Gojo starts comboing Miguel like a video game character, and Miguel survives. Not only is this impressive because of how strong Gojo is, but we get more info in the story of how big of a deal this is later. In Gojo's fight with Sukuna, it's shown that every time he punches someone, he infuses blue into his fist. This was strong enough to make Yuta, a special grade, throw up with one hit, and did the same to Hikari. Yet Miguel can eat these punches over and over again and keep fighting. Regardless, Gojo does defeat Miguel, although he doesn't kill him at the end of their fight. The fight with Gojo is enough to burn through Miguel's Black black rope, leaving no weapons left that can get through Gojo's defenses. Thanks to him awakening his powers and a clutch binding vow, Yuta is able to defeat Suguru, a special grade sorcerer. Gojo does finish off a wounded Suguru, but he doesn't destroy his body, and this comes back to bite him in the future. The following year, Gojo introduces himself to a new character, Itadori Yuji, as the strongest Jujutsu sorcerer. With Suguru's death, who he was already stronger than, Toji dead, and many others out of the picture or below him in strength, this is undeniably true. He asks Yuji to swap with Sukuna, the strongest in history, who Yuji is a vessel for thanks to eating Sukuna's finger. Although Sukuna is only at 5% of his strength, so he has no way to deal with Gojo. But this fight is important later on. Sukuna's fingers are special grade cursed objects, and there are 20 in total. Even Gojo, the strongest on the planet at the time, can't destroy them with his strength. It's also worth noting that Gojo can take one look at Yuji and immediately know that he and Sukuna's souls share one body, hinting that Gojo is aware of the soul, which has many benefits against characters like Mahito and others. Once Yuji joins his squad, Yuji and the others are sent on a mission against a special grade cursed spirit. This is normally a mission for Gojo, since as a special grade sorcerer, he can easily take out special grade curses, but he was away at the time. When Gojo returns, he learns that Yuji was dead, which was planned out by the higher-ups while he was gone. It's in this moment that he wants to murder all of them, which he's fully capable of, but he doesn't do because he sees education and reform as the way to approach changing the world, not a massacre. At the same time, a man named Kenjaku is meeting with Jogo, one of the disaster curses, in which Kenjaku says that none of the disaster curses would ever defeat Gojo, and that removing him from the fight is the only way to win, even with Kenjaku's help. Kenjaku is a man who uses Suguru's dead body, since it wasn't destroyed, and has 1,000 years of experience coming from the Heian era. He can take on special grade sorcerer Yuki Tsukumo and grade 1 sorcerer Choso at the same time, and even match the greatest barrier user ever, Tengen, at barrier techniques. Jogo, a special grade curse, is the strongest of the disaster curses, who's compared to the second fastest sorcerer on the planet, Naobito, and even killed Naobito, along with taking out a grade 1 and grade 2 sorcerer at the same time. The other disaster curses are Dagon and Hanami, with their leader, Mahito. Hanami, who's so durable that most of the students can't damage him, and was compared to Cursed Naoya. Dagon, who can fight more than one grade 1 sorcerer at a time, and Mahito, who can attack the soul and not take serious damage unless his opponent can do the same. While he mourns Yuji, Gojo claims that Yuji, Yuta, and Hikari are all students that can reach his level one day. Yuta already being one of the strongest at a young age, and Hikari, who Yuta compares to himself, are already on that path, giving him high expectations for Yuji as someone who's unrivaled. We later learn in a conversation with Principal Gakuganji that Gojo thinks Yuta, Yuji, and Todo will surpass him altogether, since he thinks the Jujutsu world will have to make a whole new rank separate from his to categorize their strength. In the meantime, Gojo gets targeted by Jogo, who has the highest rank for curses in the series, and ignored Kenjaku's warnings that Gojo would kill him. Even in the face of Jogo, who's stronger than the Sukuna he dog-walked earlier, Gojo only thinks Jogo's appearance is exciting, not worrying at all. Jogo tries many attacks on Gojo, like using his flames and explosions, but none of it works. Gojo was letting Jogo believe that he was doing something, while none of these attacks even touched him, because of his infinity defenses. To explain this to Jogo, Gojo tells him step by step how his curse technique works. This is spoken about by Kento Nanami, a grade 1 sorcerer, as a binding vow called revealing one's hand that boosts the power of a technique. During this time, Gojo confuses Jogo with his blue infused punches, hits him with red, and blitzes him all within the span of a few seconds. The same Jogo who was so fast that Nanami couldn't even respond to him, showing how fast Gojo really is for Naobito to be second to him in speed. He then teleports to grab Yuji, since he thinks Jogo is so weak that he can teach Yuji about domain expansions and fight Jogo at the same time. The same Jogo who shook 2 grade 1 sorcerers, saying he was on another level, both of which should be comparable to special grade curses themselves. Gojo destroys one of Jogo's attacks after saying a curse technique used inside the domain will always hit. But the author goes out of his way in an interview to point out that this isn't Jogo's guaranteed hit. After teaching Yuji a lesson about domains and how to counter them, Gojo overwrites Jogo's Coffin of the Iron Mountain with Unlimited Void. Gojo's Unlimited Void is so strong that Jogo can't even move because he's being flooded with infinite sets of information, to the point that it paralyzes his body. How long Jogo is inside Unlimited Void is never spoken about in the manga, but it's impressive when you look at the anime, where Jogo is affected for around 50 seconds, since Gojo touching someone inside of his domain will stop its effect. Looking at Gojo's domain in Shibuya, regular humans were flooded with half a year of information in 2/10 of a second, which means every second inside of Gojo's domain is equal to 2.5 years of information being flooded into his target's mind. This means that Jogo surviving 50 seconds inside of Gojo's domain flooded up to 125 years of information into his mind from start to finish. After their fight, Jogo is left with nothing but a head and takes days to recover. This reinforces what Kenjaku told him, that Gojo was too much for all of them combined, and the only way to deal with him, even as a 5-man group, is to seal Gojo inside of Prison Realm. Later on, the Kyoto Exchange event, a training event for students, is invaded by special grade Hanami and others. Hanami is one of the highest ranked and most durable curses in the series. Two sorcerers who can match a special grade curse in strength, Yuji and Todo, fight Hanami and push it into opening its domain expansion. Domain expansions are the pinnacle of Jujutsu and the strongest techniques in the series for the most part. Yet Hanami throws its entire plan away and leaves the second it sees Gojo. Catching the curse at the last second, Gojo fires the same hollow purple that he used to kill Toji and barely catches a fleeing Hanami. This is enough to put Hanami near death, as it struggles to move from barely escaping the full brunt of Gojo's attack. Later that same year, Kenjaku and Mahito track down Kokichi Muta to kill him before the Shibuya event. Kokichi's plan is to call Gojo, but that isn't an option because of a curtain that blocks cell reception. Many people used to question how Gojo would deal with Mahito. Not only can Mahito not touch Gojo, but Gojo is also aware of the soul, which is a main requirement for killing Mahito quickly. This only leaves Kenjaku, but the author points out that he would never beat Gojo. Later on in Shibuya, Gojo faces off against 3 special grade threats alone: special grade curses Jogo and Hanami, and a special grade death painting Choso, all which are the highest rank for curses in the series. Jogo and Hanami use domain amplification to get past Gojo's infinity. Kenjaku taught them this before the attack, and it's the only way to get past infinity except domain expansion. Even when teaching them this, Kenjaku goes out of his way to nerf Gojo before he even sends the curses inside, surrounding him with innocent people so that if he uses techniques, he would kill them, since Gojo's at his strongest when he's alone. Even when another special grade curse, Hanami, on top of Jogo, not counting Choso since he doesn't have a domain expansion, are put together, Kenjaku has no hesitation, saying that Gojo would win a domain battle against both of them at the same time. Not only does Gojo chase down and brutally attack Jogo, but he one-shots Hanami, both of which were too much for most of his students, and can kill high-grade sorcerers with years of experience. What's even more impressive is that Gojo's curse energy output is so high that he can override Hanami's domain amplification. So unlike the inverted spear of heaven and Miguel's black robe, Gojo can simply overpower domain amplification if he's that much stronger than his opponent. While Choso barely fights and Jogo runs for his life, Kenjaku says the fight is still too easy for Satoru Gojo. Even when the strongest curses in the series, who can destroy most of the cast as a unit, fight Gojo, they're nothing in comparison. Gojo uses Unlimited Void for 2/10 of a second. This is strong enough to flood half a year of information into human targets and stun the curses for 5 minutes while he kills 1,000 transfigured humans by himself. This looks good until he gets sealed by Prison Realm for most of the series, an object that turned off his curse energy, disabling his technique. After being sealed for most of the series, Gojo is finally set free by his students, where he meets Kenjaku and a 15-finger Sukuna, both of which he's confident he can kill, but doesn't for his own reasons. Kenjaku even mentions that had Sukuna not shown up when he did, he would have been killed instantly. In the meantime, Gojo trains for his fight against both of them at a later date, while Sukuna eats 4 more fingers and his mummified skull to reach 100% of his strength, or 20 fingers worth. 20 fingers is stronger than when Sukuna dominated Jogo, defeated the strongest Shikigami in history, Maharaga, and fought both Yuji and Maki, who's equal to Toji while nerfed. Before the fight, Yuta, Hikari, and Maki, who's now on Toji's level, are the strongest hitters after Gojo, in which their only chance of defeating Sukuna is after Gojo dies, meaning even Toji, who could kill him as a teenager, wouldn't match up to Gojo now with a special grade sorcerer and another strong sorcerer's help. While he was sealed, the residue from Gojo's cursed energy remained where he was sealed in Shibuya. This was so strong that the curses never came back to the area again from his residue alone. Using a combination of hand signs and a boost from Utahime and Gakuganji, Gojo boosts his hollow purple to 200% of its normal output. This is enough to blow off Sukuna's hand by itself. Gojo tells Sukuna that he plans on killing him since Sukuna already died once inside of Yuji's body, showing that he's gonna go all out. During the fight, Sukuna also uses domain amplification to bypass Gojo's infinity, but Gojo doesn't overpower him the same way he did with Hanami. Sukuna is closer to Gojo's level, so he's not going to one-shot him the same way he did with the special grade curse. On the sidelines, the other sorcerers discuss Sukuna having a domain with an open barrier. This is such a high-level domain expansion that many think it's impossible to have, and Gojo will have to face this alone while having no idea how it works. Now that the fight is heating up, Gojo and Sukuna bring out their domain expansions, but the two of them are equal in strength and cancel each other out. Gojo loses the clash because Sukuna's open domain has more range and breaks his barrier from the outside. Sukuna's malevolent shrine covers a range of 200 meters, which is the same size as Shibuya. Even then, closing that distance to escape with his teleportation is no issue for Gojo. But with his domain shattered, his technique is out of commission for a while. While Sukuna cuts Gojo over and over again, Gojo claims his technique is overwhelmingly stronger. This is him basically saying that Malevolent Shrine won't one-shot him, while Sukuna can be killed by one hit of Unlimited Void uninterrupted. Malevolent Shrine uses Cleave to attack living targets over and over again. That's meant to one-shot who it touches. Yet Gojo can stand through it with Reverse Curse technique. Gojo responds with a simple domain that neutralizes the guaranteed hit technique of a domain expansion. Although this isn't enough to stop Sukuna's domain, since as shown by Yuki, it'll only buy time against a real domain. After it's destroyed, Gojo uses Simple Domain a second time to outlast Sukuna and recover his technique. Yuta Akotsu, who's right below Gojo in strength, didn't even know this was possible and struggles to figure out how it works. Gojo then uses Red to blast Sukuna into his shrine, taking off a chunk of Sukuna's face, making this red even more powerful than the one he used against Jogo and Toji in the past. He then challenges Sukuna, and the two have another domain clash between Malevolent Shrine and Unlimited Void. But Gojo is outsmarted by Sukuna, who takes advantage of Gojo's domain only affecting people who aren't touching him, something he learned while watching Gojo's fight against Jogo inside of Yuji. This leads to Gojo's domain being destroyed a second time, but he's able to fend off Sukuna's guaranteed hit with Falling Blossom Emotion that automatically counters anything that touches him, which he learned as a kid, but stopped using after getting Unlimited Void. Gojo and Sukuna clash domains again, and this time, Gojo shrinks his domain to be smaller than ever. Not only does this make it more powerful, but it's also something he learned from being trapped inside of Prison Realm that no one else knows how to do. Although, unlike other clashes, Gojo damaged Sukuna enough to bring down his domain, a process that took 3 minutes and 9 seconds to do. Early on, Gojo was the only one who could recover a burnt-out technique, although Sukuna's enough of a prodigy to copy it the second he sees Gojo do it, so now they can both recover their techniques at will. As the two clash, Gojo points out that Sukuna is only using techniques granted to him by his domain. Not only could Sukuna have been more aggressive with countering Unlimited Void, but he's also yet to use Maharaga, the strongest 10 Shadow Shikigami. Gojo and Sukuna clash domains yet again, and Gojo uses Blue to pull in Sukuna. This is a way of using Blue that Gojo never did in the past, that he uses to heavily damage Sukuna's face. Yet another domain clash goes off, but this time it's different. Gojo was 1/100th of a second faster than Sukuna, a delay between the two that was caused by Sukuna healing his injuries. This is impressive timing by Gojo for clashing while Sukuna recovered to get the slightest advantage. Gojo finally lands Unlimited Void on Sukuna and starts flooding him with information, but he's stopped by the Shikigami Maharaga. Maharaga adapts to curse techniques by spinning the wheel on its back, and Maharaga's already adapted to Unlimited Void. In his fight against Yorozu, Sukuna used Maharaga's wheel above his head to take the hits from Maharaga's adaptation himself. But Gojo notices Sukuna didn't do this. That burden was on Megami's soul, proving that Gojo is aware of the soul as mentioned earlier. Gojo laughs to Sukuna, saying he's happy he's fighting so hard, but Sukuna says he's not fighting as hard as Gojo. This confirms Yuta's suspicions earlier that Gojo is fighting beyond his limits. Gojo's confident about killing Sukuna and goes for another unlimited void, but blood gushes out of his nose. Gojo's been destroying part of his brain and regenerating it to refresh his burnt out technique, and it's taking a toll on his body, stopping him from using his domain again. As Sukuna mocks Gojo and gets ready for Malevolent Shrine, he has the same issue. Gojo's unlimited void fried Sukuna's brain for less than 10 seconds, meaning it hit him with 25 years of information at the most, stopping Sukuna from using his domain. There's a flashback to Nanami where he warns Yuji not to compare himself to Gojo. Critical strikes that are hard for Nanami to pull off are like simple jabs to him, which may mean a punch mixed with blue is like a black flash from Nanami. Back to Gojo and Sukuna, they're clearly engaged in hand-to-hand combat, and Gojo is winning. He even makes after images, unlike anyone before him, but it's not enough to trick Sukuna, and he finds Gojo quickly. As their fight progresses, Gojo realizes Maharaga's wheel goes black when Sukuna uses domain amplification to damage him. Maharaga's adaptation happens the more it's hit with a technique, so Gojo is only using blue instead of his other moves, to slow Maharaga's advantage over him as much as possible. Gojo brings out more techniques that show he's even more advanced than before. He can now surround his body with orbs of blue and fire them off at will. With a new strategy, Gojo fires red straight at Sukuna, who weakens it with domain amplification. It looks like Gojo is outsmarted, but he has his red wrapped around the building to attack Sukuna from behind, outsmarting one of the smartest characters in the series. This gives him enough of an opening to hit a black flash and knock Sukuna unconscious. He hit Sukuna exponentially harder than normal and brought himself to 120% of his potential with a layered strategy. After Sukuna summons Maharaga, Gojo and everyone around him knows he can lose, the first time since Toji 11 years ago, meaning no one was a real threat to him that entire time until now. He unloads a combo onto Maharaga and makes it throw up with his strength, but a blast of red with recovered output is enough to make Sukuna force the Shikigami to retreat, since he knows Gojo would kill it with one blow. Maharaga has adapted to Gojo's defenses, so he can hit him without issue while Sukuna plays support. Sukuna even uses Max Elephant's water without summoning it, a feat that Gojo says needs skill that's equal to his own. Sukuna summons a Gito, a combination of 4 Shikigami on top of Maharaga. Just 2 Shikigami fused together were enough to take Divine Dogs from fodder to special grade, yet even 3-on-1 isn't enough to stop Gojo. Seeing Gojo outnumbered, Yuta wants to step in and wipe out Agito, but Hikari warns him that they're only to go out if Gojo gets weaker than the two of them. Even with Gojo weakened, they'd still only get in his way. Back to Gojo, he's holding his own against Agito and Maharaga. He notices that Agito can heal and makes destroying it his #1 priority, to stop it from healing Sukuna. While he fights, Sukuna thinks back to Gojo's 200% hollow purple. Now that he's taken so much damage, even a regular purple to the head can kill Sukuna. He calls out Maharaga, telling it he's not Megami's shadow, but his own, and to show him what he's made of. So Maharaga fires off a dismantle that goes straight past Gojo's infinity, satisfying Sukuna, which will be important later on. With Gojo's healing output low in one hand, he fends off Maharaga, Sukuna, and Agito at the same time, before using maximum output blues to destroy Agito, the same attack he used against Toji that makes a center of gravity, healing his injuries in the process. As Gojo lands a second black flash, his voltage rises up, causing Sukuna to be uneasy for the first time in 1,000 years, something that Jogo, Kenjaku, and no one else in the series could accomplish. Knowing his blue is still in the air, Gojo fires a red to meet it in the sky, stopping Maharaga and Sukuna from intercepting it on his own. This is impressive because he's doing all of this while making his attacks stronger through his chance to recover his lost output. He uses an advanced version of Hollow Purple called Unlimited Hollow to blast Hollow Purple in all directions, heavily injuring Sukuna. but survives thanks to the hollow purple not being concentrated into one area. This does damage to Gojo, but not anything he can't recover from. The attack hit him with his own cursed energy, so he's in better shape than Sukuna, proving Kenjaku and Kusakabe right that Yuta and anyone else would only hold Gojo back if they got in his way. In the next chapter, Gojo is dead thanks to Sukuna's strategy. He watched Mahoraga adapt to Gojo in several different ways, and used the final one to cut existence and split Gojo in half. This was argued about a lot since Gojo seemed to be winning the fight, but the story continues when Sukuna fights Kashima, which shows that not only did he have more weapons that he didn't use against Gojo, he could have healed himself back to full health whenever he wanted to. This means that when Gojo was bleeding on the ground and couldn't use his domain, Sukuna was never in danger. Sukuna could have healed himself back to his Heian era form and killed Gojo with Malevolent Shrine. As close as the fight between the two of them seemed, Gojo was never going to beat Sukuna, who had a second win, especially since Sukuna can fire off his world-splitting dismantle at will with no special conditions. In conclusion, Gojo is one of the strongest characters in the series, stronger than almost anyone, but Sukuna is undeniably stronger than Gojo, and that much has been made abundantly clear.